You walk away from a simple conversation, yet you feel completely drained. You spent 20 minutes justifying a personal choice, softening your tone, and apologizing for a boundary you tried to set. It is easy to classify this behavior as a byproduct of empathy or social consideration. In reality, this habit functions as a survival mechanism, masking a deep psychological wound that demands you remain palatable to everyone at all times. By requiring others to agree with your reasoning, you grant them the authority to validate your presence. In these moments, your need to be understood acts as a silent plea for permission to exist. This constant accommodation operates as a one-way transaction, transferring your psychological power to anyone willing to listen. Society prizes people who are highly accommodating. We reward those who bend, adapt, and provide a reasonable justification for their actions, even when no such explanation is required. The psychiatrist Carl Jung viewed this dynamic as an active form of self-neglect. He observed that the constant attempt to convince others of your internal reasoning actually distances you from your own self. This reliance on external validation creates a psychological confinement. You stop living according to your internal compass and begin curating your actions based on how they will be judged. You enter an eternal theater where the audience, the external world, holds the power to decide if your choices are legitimate. This mask of being easy to get along with facilitates a state of self-imposed subjugation, where you act as your own warden. This compulsion typically originates in early environments where a child's emotional reality was systematically invalidated. If expressing sadness was dismissed as being dramatic, or showing anger was labeled as being difficult, you learned that your raw emotions were a liability. This diagram illustrates the flawed logic. Your internal state only has value if someone else understands it. To navigate this, you built a defense mechanism. You became convinced that explaining yourself with enough precision could prevent the pain of rejection. Many adults carry this script into their professional and personal lives. They laugh at jokes they find offensive or hide deep sadness behind the phrase, "I'm just tired," to avoid the friction of being truly seen. Every time you replace an internal no with an external yes to keep the peace, you reinforce the habit of prioritizing others' comfort over your own integrity. Communication functions as a ledger of power. Every interaction involves a transfer of psychological capital. The act of over-explaining your boundaries is an active leak of that capital into your environment. People who seek to control others are adept at identifying this specific leak. They view your need to be understood as a vulnerability to be exploited. Manipulation relies on your reflex to react. If you feel forced to defend your position, you have already ceded control of the interaction. Controllers rely on your underlying fear of being perceived as unreasonable to keep you in a defensive posture. You end up negotiating the very essence of who you are, constantly adjusting your boundaries to fit the expectations of those around you. Frequent justification broadcasts that your reality is up for debate, making you a primary target for those who seek to manage your behavior. Reclaiming your autonomy requires the construction of what Jung called internal authority. Psychological freedom is found when you develop the capacity to validate your own subjective experience, regardless of whether anyone else agrees with it. This shift is illustrated by the movement of these circles. You must stop asking, "Will they understand?" and begin stating, "This is true for me." When your sense of truth detaches from the need for external approval, your internal state becomes self-contained and stable. Internal authority allows you to stop surrendering your psychological capital to a world that will never be fully satisfied with your explanations. In practice, this means that when a boundary is questioned, you simply state, "This does not resonate with me," and stop talking. The silence that follows creates intense internal pressure. The part of you trained to please others will try forcing you to fill that void. If you hold that silence, it shifts from an awkward gap in conversation into a clear demonstration of personal authority. This secure silence acts as a physical barrier. It destabilizes those who rely on your reactivity to maintain control over the interaction. Some people will distance themselves when you stop performing for their benefit. This is a natural filtering process that removes those who were only present because you were easy to manipulate. The world often returns the respect you show yourself when you decline to negotiate your own truth. Stop outsourcing your self-esteem to the opinions of others. Accept the discomfort of being misunderstood, and type "I owe no explanations" in the comments to mark this shift in your perspective. Occupying space without offering a justification allows you to operate from a position of personal autonomy. It is the first step in reclaiming a mind that is truly your own.